You're listening to Autumn on the Air, the weekly podcast that brings you conversations about the impact of research commercialization and the people who make it happen. Join us for interviews with patent and licensing professionals, innovators, entrepreneurs, and tech transfer leaders on the issues and trends that matter most. Keep listening for an inside track on the people, IP policies, and politics changing our world.
Welcome to Autumn on the Air. Today's episode is a little different. Yeah, we're going to talk about tech transfer, but we're going to do so today through the lens of a board game. My guest is Guru Venkatesan, a business development manager at Fred Hutch and the creator of a new tech transfer-inspired board game called Royalty Stacks. Royalty Stacks is, in Guru's own words, a game of patents, licenses, and leverage, an engine-building game where players take ideas, decide how broadly to patent them, and then choose how to bring them to market through startups, exclusive licenses, or non-exclusive partnerships, all while navigating knockoffs, hostile takeovers, a variety of market events, and the occasional help from the rich uncle's seed fund. Guru's path to this moment is a fun one. He grew up in a small town in India, wanted to study visual arts, and in a classic plot twist, as he likes to call it, was persuaded by his dad to study engineering instead. He earned his bachelor's in India and then moved to Tennessee for a PhD in biomedical engineering. During grad school, he founded an annual event called Tech Carnivol, which he describes as a Coachella-style festival for science and engineering. Guru's journey into technology commercialization started at the University of Minnesota, where he worked under Leza Besemann and, as he puts it, fell in love with the field. In 2021, he received the Howard Bremer Scholarship for an essay on the responsibility we hold as tech transfer professionals and how AI could reshape tech transfer, and that was before ChatGPT was even a thing. Today, he's at Fred Hutch in Seattle doing deals, and after 6 years in the profession, he says explaining what he actually does to his relatives remains one of his greatest communication challenges, and he hopes that this new board game will help him. Guru, welcome to Autumn on the Air. Really excited to have you here on the podcast today.
Oh, thrilled to be here, Leza.
Well, I thought maybe the most obvious place to start the podcast off today is your background and career journey, because you have a really interesting career arc. You have a PhD in biomedical engineering. You grew up wanting to be a visual artist, and now you work in tech commercialization. How did all of those threads come together to land you in tech transfer, even in the first place?
I feel like my story only makes sense in retrospect. It feels cohesive when I look back, but it's definitely a lot of steps that happen that are accidental and by pressure. I mean, growing up, I remember making little acrylic paintings on glass and giving it to my friends on their birthdays. So I was always into this kind of like crafts and art and stuff. But in high school, I pursued to be, I wanted to be a physician. In India, you can get into medical school right from your undergrad, after your high school, and you have to clear this exam, sort of like SAT. I took the exam and I missed the cut by a mile. So I was like, okay, visual communication, maybe animation is what I should be doing. But my dad and his friends talked me out of it. And they said there's no career in that at that time, and suggested that I should do engineering. And I settled for biomedical engineering because it was between medical field and what the engineering field that they wanted me to do. But after PhD, I got my undergrad in India and then moved to Tennessee for my PhD. And then got into a postdoc at the University of Minnesota. And then I was looking for a way out because I realized, like most postdocs do, that I was not going to become an academic professor. And just by accident, I saw this job posting from University of Minnesota's technology commercialization office. They were hiring for like full-time postdocs to train people on tech commercialization. I thought it was a fantastic opportunity. And after 3 rounds of interviews, I was like, sounds super interesting, exciting, sign me up. And they gave me an opportunity, and that's how my career in tech transfer started.
Yeah, it sounds like a familiar story that we hear from a lot of people. And I think another interesting part of your journey, which I think a lot of listeners can relate to, is you have said that even after 6 years in this profession, explaining what you actually do to your relatives is still a big communication challenge. Was that the spark for royalty stacks, or was there a different aha moment that you thought, hey, this really needs to be a game?
Right. Yeah, I want to say that I did like a whiteboarding session to figure out the unmet needs in tech transfer, but in reality, the idea just popped out in my head. And when I was laying awake in the bed at 2:00 in the morning, I was jet lagged for whatever reason. And I just thought, hey, tech transfer behaves so much like a strategy game. We make a lot of economic and strategic decisions around patenting and licensing, evaluating risks and timing and potential for future payoffs and all that. And of course, there's so much luck and market factors that are out of our hands. And I thought this could potentially be gamified in one way or the other. I looked up that night, online to see if there was any game like that that people have made. But to my surprise, no one had made it. So the very next day, I got up and made a Uno style
wow,
and played it with my wife. It was okay. She said it was interesting, but not that interesting. So I made a different version with the money involved. And as soon as money is in the mix, things started getting more interesting. I brought maybe like the 3rd iteration to my office. This was back in 2023. Played it with my colleagues, and it was a bit clunky at the beginning, and we played it for an hour and had a lot of fun. That gave me the conviction that I needed to continue working on it. It was almost like a quick market validation of some sort. From there on, playtesting and iteration was the name of the game. So just kept on working on it since then.
So what does your wife think about it now, since she didn't find it overly interesting the first time you played it with her?
Oh, she loves me so much. She say it's one of the most exciting games ever.
Yeah, she sounds pretty amazing. She's very supportive, obviously. Before we get into the specifics on the game, though, I did want to ask you about another interesting facet about your background. You founded Tech Carnivol back in grad school, a Coachella-style festival for science and engineering. And when I hear and think about that in view of, Royalty Stacks, this board game about patents and licenses, it sounds like there's a real through line here with you about making science and innovation feel fun, but also accessible. Is that something you've been particularly intentional about throughout your 6-year career?
I think I should remember this for my future cover letters. It sounds very nice the way you said it. No, I hadn't thought of it that way, and I would be lying if it was intentional. If I said it was intentional. No, for Tech Carnivol, as probably one of my most favorite times of my life. The spark really started in India at IIT Madras, one of the premium institutions, where they organized this 5-day long festival. Leza,
Wow.
100,000 students attend during that 5-day period, and they participate in competitions and talks and showcases about cutting edge technology that are from like Western world. They bring in and showcase those things. The sheer scale and quality of that event was just beyond impressive, and I was inspired to do more engineering work and more lean into it from that. Going to those events. These are annual events.
Wow.
The best part of that is this event was entirely organized by students. So when I came to the US, I didn't see anything like that. I was talking to my friend at that time, and he said, dude, you should just do it. So I talked to a bunch of people and convinced them that we should do a small scale version of that and do a one day event where you'll have multiple competitions like hackathons and robotics and this and that all at the same time, and kids will come and have fun. And we did that for about 4 years, and I think the organization is not functional anymore. But engaging students in an interesting way was the goal there. In my tabletop game, the royalty stacks, the game that I'm talking about now, the primary goal was to have fun with it for myself and maybe see how others react and see if this could be a good way to engage with my relatives to talk about the game. And a lot of work and focus has gone into making the game more accessible. For example, early on when I was playing this game with my friends, I noticed a lot of resistance, or maybe they didn't catch up on the game mechanics because I was using jargons that are so, familiar for our industry professionals, but not so much for general public. Like I would use terms like innovation cards and innovation in technology or something that we use all the time, but for the general public, idea means so much more. So I changed those cards to ideas, idea cards. And licensing is a big part of what we do. But for the public, it doesn't mean much. But they get excited about launching a product because they've seen Apple launch a product. Or, so that becomes a lot more interesting. So I ended up changing the names of some of the cards to make it more accessible and relatable to general public. And like I said, my wife has 5 siblings, and I play tested with all of them. And they gave me a lot of feedback about what works and what doesn't work and how relatable they are. So was finding a balance between staying authentic to the profession, but also making sure that it makes sense to most people. So I guess you would say I was deliberate in making it fun and accessible.
Yeah.
Long answer. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, definitely. And, it's a good point that you bring. Really, tech transfer, patent law, licensing, all has a unique language to it, right? That uses a lot of terms that the general public isn't familiar with. So it sounds like playing with your wife's 5 siblings was really invaluable that way, because when you do it day in and day out, it becomes like a second language to us. We don't even think about it, right? But when you think about somebody that you're trying to, who's not in the tech transfer field, and you're trying to communicate to them what it's about through this game, you come to realize that they too are going to either have to learn the language, or you're going to have to find a different way to explain those concepts.
Exactly. Actually, that reminds me, like you have a book on I guess people for how to be around folks with Down syndrome. I mean, you had the similar experience, right?
Yeah. When I wrote the book about my niece who has Down syndrome, people aren't familiar, especially now. There aren't that many people with Down syndrome. So yeah, you have to find a way to communicate using language that they'll understand. So it sounds like you had a very similar experience. So let's get into the game, into some more specifics, and give our listeners a picture of what the game is itself. So if I sit down at a table with 3 or 4 of my friends and we open the box, what are we actually doing in royalty stacks?
Yeah, so it's an entirely card-based game. So there's no boards or dice or meeples at this point. It's a card-based game. You'll see about 150 different cards. There are 2 modes to this. There's a base mode, which is a simplified mode that most people can learn and enjoy very quickly. And then there's an advanced mode. Once you are familiar with the base mode, you can step up to advanced mode. So it's all card-based. You have a bunch of different cards. You have idea cards that represent different ideas. I included a bunch of silly, meaningless ideas that will never work. But that's just for fun. And then you take those ideas and you do certain actions to it. Actions like filing patents and developing them to either look for partners or create startups. And then you launch the product. So the launch cards are cards that you draw in random. You don't know what you're going to get. And there's play money involved, and then there's some additional power cards that gives you more powers. So it's an engine building game where you are competing with other players. Each player will start with $10, and you take turns to spend money and take actions. So on your turn, you will say, hey, I have 3 cards, 3 ideas. I'm going to protect 1 or 2 of them by filing a patent. And then in the next round, you'll want to develop it, whether you want to decide whether you want to sign licenses, or do you want to look for a startup if you're more interested in that. And as you launch the product, you will start accruing money. And as you make more and more money, you can afford to spend more, like filing a broader patent or developing a minimal viable product, which will double your income every round, and a few other leverage cards like that. So you win the game by making the most amount of money. It's a kind of a traditional capitalistic approach, or by creating the most diversified portfolio that includes at least 1 startup, 1 exclusive deal, and 1 non-exclusive deal, and finally 1 acquired business that you take from one of your opponents. And this is it's sort of an orthogonal way to get the more business savvy person side of you, and not just the what's your cash in hand view. So those are the 2 different ways to win the game. And then there's the advanced mode, which includes a type of cards called corporate roulette. These are tiny little cards that represent some market events, and that you can play on each other to make the game more interactive. So that's the core of the game.
Yeah, it sounds like you can, advance, like you said, you have the basic version and then the advanced version of the game. But I want to go back to the core arc of the stack. And you mentioned it. You start with an idea, then you protect it, you develop it, and you launch it. And those are the 3 phases that you said, or you describe as the spend money, and the launch part is where you make money. And $10, that's a pretty low amount of money in this day and age, Guru. But so how closely did you model that on real economics, the $10 aside, obviously, of tech transfer?
Yeah, the game is definitely, just the box is more than $10.
Yeah, exactly.
The core, so the economics loosely follow tech transfer economics. So, but going back to the core tension in the game, the game is about resource allocation and portfolio management and taking bets. Everybody starts with 3 ideas and a little bit of money, $10. And how do you allocate those resources and develop them to make the most amount of money? That's the simplest way to explain it. On the economic side, on the spending front, you have 3 different types of patents you can file, 3 different regions. You can file a patent in US alone, or US and Europe, or US and Europe and Asia. And those cost different amounts of money. Of course, US, Europe, and Asia will be the most expensive patent to file. And if you file in more regions, it enables you to sign licenses in those regions. So there are some fundamental concepts from tech transfer that applies here, but the economics, actual numbers make no sense. It's more for our ability to easily calculate money here in the game. And on the revenue side, when you launch products, you get more money from launching an exclusive license, like through an exclusive license, and then next step is maybe a non-exclusive license are not going to make you that much money. So that is like directionally similar to tech transfer deals. But then the game deviates quite a bit from the real world. For instance, you can make 3 times more money if you file that patent in 3 regions. That's not how it works, but in the real world. But it's for fun and make the game more juicier and feel like the players feel more satisfied when they pick up that money, when they make that money. So there's a little bit of real world scenarios in it, and then there is a lot of gamey elements that is added just for fun's sake.
And going back to those three regions that you mentioned, US, Europe, and Asia, and like you said, depending on where, if you file in one versus two versus all three, there's different levels of payouts. But interestingly, I didn't see any mention of copyrights and trademarks. I'm assuming that was intentional. Did you feel like that was just going to add another level of complexity of the game, or was there another reason you decided not to tackle those two other forms of IP?
No, you said it right. Complexity.
Yeah.
One of the core tenets in the tabletop game industry is that you want the players to make interesting and meaningful decisions. And when I played tested with games, the great games where they had patents, copyrights, trademarks, and even trade secrets, it complicated the game, took more time for people to understand what's going on, and it didn't add that much more fun.
Okay.
So I chose to sacrifice some of that for just to keep it more simple and make the players more engaged. Maybe there's an expansion pack for someone else to develop. I'm not currently working on anything.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe for some type of social innovation or something like that, where you might have more of a copyright and a trademark, an expansion pack type of thing, a social innovation expansion pack. But I think one of the really neat things, and where the game really gets to be fun, is the interaction between players. And you mentioned you have these power cards, like the launch knockoff, where someone can pile onto your patent and steal half your revenue. Then you have enforced patent, where you can fight back with a game of rock, paper, scissors, which I thought was, talk about the fun aspect. I thought that was really fun. Walk us through the philosophy behind those cards and why for patent enforcement you decided to choose rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, this is one of the fun ones where it stayed from the time I introduced in the game. And this is another instance where I tried to recreate a real world scenario within the game. The reality is any successful product and useful product in the world will eventually attract competitors or knockoff products. That's just a given. And I wanted the players to experience that while playing the game. So just because you have a patent doesn't mean there won't be copycats, right? And unless you enforce it. So introducing launch knockoff as a mechanism to benefit off of someone else's hard work made sense. And as a natural response, the patent holder will want to enforce their patent. And there are ways to settle a dispute in the court of law. But in the game, I wanted a little more lighthearted way to decide the outcome. So rock, paper, scissors brings out that childish, quick rush of excitement that some people are so uncomfortable playing this game, playing rock, paper, scissors. They're like, oh, I'm so bad at it. But they have to do it and everybody's watching it. So, and it's a decisive and satisfying experience for the winner, at least. And it's also very orthogonal to everything else that is happening in the game. So it takes the players out of the game for a little bit. They're looking up from the table and they get excited about this little rock, paper, scissors game. So it's a fun introduction. I thought it was one of the ideas that people get a good rush out of during the game.
Yeah, it's a physical component to it too. It gets people moving a little bit, which I think is really neat. And it's a little less serious. I mean, because obviously patent enforcement is very serious. It's very complicated too. So I thought you found a very unique way to handle patent enforcement. And you also have some other unique aspects to the game. I mean, there's hostile takeover, which is a very expensive card to play, where you can try and acquire an opponent's entire distressed business. And then a little bit more friendly on the other side, there's Collaborate, where two players can jointly build a stack that's immune to attacks, which I thought was really creative as well. So how important to you was it? I mean, you've got an adversarial option as well as a cooperative option. So how important was it to you to include both those options in the game?
Early on, when I was thinking from a tech transfer game point of view, we don't deal with hostile takeovers as much, right? In the tech transfer world. So I was going from like, hey, let's build a portfolio. How good can your portfolio be? Was the original game, like early iterations. But that lacked a lot of player interactions that most people play the game to experience. When I introduced some adversarial cards, like you can terminate an opponent's license and they'll lose their business entirely. Then that game became more combative. But when I introduced a mechanism where you can collaborate with one another, it became quite interesting, where you're building your own 3 businesses on your portfolio, but also can collaborate with someone else and share the revenue. And that collaborative business, no one can attack. That gave an incentive for players to collaborate. So that's one of the most powerful cards in the game, actually, is collaborating with someone else. And your opponent cannot attack that collaborative stack. So you and your partner both benefit by collaborating. On the other hand, the hostile takeover mechanism gives the underdog a chance to win the game immediately. Say you're lagging behind and your friends have made so much more money, but you have a more diverse portfolio of companies, like different licenses, like startup, exclusive and non-exclusive license on your portfolio. Then you could try to take over someone else's distressed business by playing this card. And it's an expensive card because it gives you the ability to win it immediately, or gives you that chance to win it immediately. So it really, this tension actually plays with people's heart and brain a little bit during the game. Should I attack a trusted friend who built a successful business like me? Or do I tell myself it's purely business and try to win the game, right? So it had, that tension was pretty cool once people experience it. So I kept it.
Very, very neat. Yeah. And I'm sure it adds a whole, like you said, strategic component upon strategic component to this game as well. And you mentioned we've been focusing primarily on kind of the basic part of the game, but there's also this advanced portion of the game as well, where you have the corporate roulette deck. There are things like recessions in different regions, political turmoil, product flops, failed fundraises, but then there's also moats like cult-like brand loyalty and an ironclad supply chain. And then my personal favorite, windfalls like the rich uncle's seed fund. So there's a lot of humor baked in here as well, which I think helps, tech transfer and going through this process is obviously very serious, very strategic, but there's a lot of fun here. We talked about the rock, paper, scissors. How much of that design was about teaching and how much of it, as I just mentioned, there's the rich uncle seed fund. How much of it was just about making people laugh?
Oh, you nailed the question. It's this is one of the core questions I've been grappling with from the time I started working on it. Do I make the game more as close to tech transfer as possible and more mimicking the real world? Or do I simplify it too much to make it more accessible and interesting? Do I make it more educational or do I make it more funny? And finding that balance has been a journey.
Oh, I bet.
There were so many ideas that I had to cut out because of complexity. But when TTO professionals played it, they were like, hey, I can relate to it completely because this is a real situation that happened to me. It was quite a bit of an experience to figure out how to fit these market dynamics and events into this game. So corporate roulette cards are these tiny cards that represent random business events. And as you said, these come into play only in the real, advanced mode. Each round, you draw one card and see what you get. Hence the term roulette. These cards might give you different levels of benefits like free cash or business moats that protect you from certain risks. They can also give you the ability to cause damage to others. You don't have to use them, but people end up using them more. when they get a bad card and they don't like someone else on the table, they will definitely play the card. So I try to get the humor out both from a mechanics part as well as from the titles and the flavor text used in the card. I used quite a bit of Gen AI to wordsmith the text to make sure that it's not, bland. And I have to admit, not all text on that card is mine. On the cards are mine. Some of them are used using Gen AI. Anyhow, so some jokes land better than the others. I hope people like it.
Well, and I want to go back to something you talked about earlier, and I think it resonates, and it's a through line through this whole discussion is, tech transfer is generally hard to explain. It's got a unique language, and it sits at the intersection of so many different things, law, science, business, and there's a lot of judgment calls involved with it. So I'm curious, Guru, when you watch people play royalty stacks for the first time, especially people who are not in tech transfer, what concepts do you see sticking for them that you've struggled to explain in conversation in the past?
I think one of the first things that they realize is patenting is important. They've heard of patents and they never thought about patenting in different regions. That's something that they see and they have to take actions immediately, so they realize it immediately. But patenting is not enough. You have to actively enforce it, right? And that part they experience because someone else launched a knockoff. And they are like, okay, what do I do now? Now I have to enforce it. And then they ask me usually like, oh, just because I have a patent doesn't mean like, can I not just ask them to go away? Then the reality is you don't. Like you have to get your lawyer involved. So that's something that they're like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Other part is the launching paths, like how do you commercialize an idea or a technology? People almost always say, I want to create a startup because I have an idea. But there's also exclusive licensing path, and then there's non-exclusive licensing path. So that they sort of are new concepts to me, or to them at least, especially the non-exclusive license that people have never thought about, most people. So those things are, something that they realize, and then how regions matter in licensing. Well, you can only license your IP where you have coverage. That's something that they're like, okay, cool. That's too much detail perhaps, but they understand that. And then the biggest one maybe is, I tried hard to build that in, is how you get more value if you create more value in-house. And that's like when we in universities, we spend more money in like through gap fundings and translational fundings programs to take it a little further, de-risk the asset a little more. And the asset should become more valuable because of that process. And I've tried to build that into the game as well through some power card mechanics. So yeah, I think those are the things that people walk away with. I hope they also had a good time playing it, not just learn things.
Now, going back to how you win the game, you described two winning conditions, making the most cash when the cards run out or building a diversified portfolio of revenue-generating businesses. And that obviously mirrors real tension in tech transfer offices between metrics like licensing revenue, as well as broader impact metrics like startups launch and products on the market, things like that. Is that tension something you decided to consciously highlight?
Oh, I have to be very careful about talking about metrics. I have some strong views on it, as there are
many people in tech transfer have strong views on it too. You're not the only one. Yes.
Yeah. I have. And some metrics are better than others. Let me just stop there.
Fair. That's fair.
Yeah. I think the number of deals signed and licensing revenue are good metrics in our profession. I think those are like straightforward, measurable, and achievable. Your behavior changes because of those goals. And because in the game, because this is an engine building game where you make more money and more and more money over time, cash in hand as a winning condition was quite natural to use. But when I think back at like some games that I played, which I really enjoyed, is where you have the someone who's behind somehow swoops in and wins the game at the end. Like I like that mechanic, so I was looking for a way to introduce that. So, but when I had introduced this alternate ending scenario, that became more interesting as well. So when the player creates a diversified portfolio and manages to acquire a business from someone else, they are not only planning multiple steps in the future, into the future, but also they are taking a risky action towards the third or fourth quarter of the game. So the game became a lot more interesting because of that dynamic. So I guess the intention was not to be more have multiple metrics similar to tech transfer, but it was to make the game more interesting to play.
Now, for our Autumn colleagues who are listening to this, whether they're directors, licensing managers, business development folks, do you see this as some type of training tool or maybe a team building exercise? Is this something to play with faculty, inventors? How do you envision tech transfer offices actually using this game?
Yeah, this touches on your KYC, know your customer, and product positioning and market fit that I'm learning about. The game is definitely positioned for the Autumn community. Play and have fun with your friends and family. That's like the flashing lights. Play it with and the next tier is to play it with your colleagues and team building activities, like you said, and see who wants to play collaboratively and who wants to play offensive in your office and take your business. So that's definitely a use case there, I think. Beyond that, I think this could be a great way to engage with your faculty. Gift it to your faculty members to teach them about the general process of patenting and commercialization and risks involved in commercializing a product. A lot of them don't have, I would say, some of them could have better understanding of appreciation of what other risks go into commercializing a technology that they've come up with. So I think that would be a useful tool there. You could also have it in your startup incubators, make your young entrepreneurs think about different risks and different business modes they could be building when they're building their startups. We talked about making the game educational and fun earlier. On the backside of the card, I have included some unique, fascinating facts and anecdotes about patents and commercialization and how some businesses failed and succeeded in their journey. Just so it has that extra educational element, but it's not the core part of the game, if you will.
How long would you say, Guru, the game takes to play in terms of time?
The base mode should take under an hour. And especially if you're familiar with the rules, it should take less than 60 minutes to play. Advanced mode can take a little longer because people are usually figuring out how they're going to play their hand because they have a lot more cards in their hands. So that might take maybe 90 minutes.
Okay. So if people in tech transfer offices wanted to do this over lunch break or bring in, inventors or others, bring in food, it would be a good, it would fit in within a lunchtime kind of time scenario.
Potentially, I think a party game style game would be more ideal for that. Even I want to say, it's 1 hour. People can, a faculty member can learn and play and appreciate it. I think a shorter version would be a better fit. Maybe there's a different way to play this game. I haven't found that yet. But people like under half an hour game. That's just like a thing. People like 3 to 4 player games under half an hour because that's like most people are okay with doing.
Got it. Interesting. Yeah, and then they want to move on and do something else.
Yeah.
So there's something that's really delightfully meta about all this. You're a tech transfer professional who built a product about tech transfer. Do you find yourself running your own game's playbook when you're thinking about IP protection, partnerships, launch strategy as you were developing royalty stacks?
Oh, the game playbook from the game itself. It's kind of ironic that I'm not filing a patent on the game. I'm solely relying on copyrights and maybe a trademark eventually. But I'm not filing a patent like the game you're supposed to. I didn't patent because ideas are too abstract. The ideas that I'm using, the game mechanics are too abstract to be patented. And there's a lot of games out there. So the prior art is just, it's definitely not patentable from a novelty point of view. And in board game industry, I'm learning that branding and the trademark is definitely a lot more valuable in, take Uno, they franchise the hell.
Yeah, that's a really good example, Uno.
From a launch strategy point of view, I'm not playing my what's in the game either. I'm not creating a startup or licensing it at this point. I'm doing a Kickstarter launch, which I guess you could call a equivalent of a startup. But no, I'm not. I'm not using the playbook from the game to commercialize the game.
So I also want to touch on your 2021 Howard Bremer Scholarship Essay, because that explored, among other things, how AI might reshape tech transfer. And that was before ChatGPT even existed. Now that we're a few years in using AI, how has your thinking evolved? And did any of that thinking find its way into royalty stacks? Or is that something for maybe a future expansion pack?
Mm-hmm. I know you have a lot of speakers and episodes on the AI and how people could be using AI in tech transfer. Really appreciate those episodes. Back in 2020, I was demoed with a couple of companies like PathSnap and others where they're using natural language processing to build new features. It sounded interesting, and we're like, okay, thank you. It's maybe not what we are looking for at that time. But I knew there was a potential in it, like how AI could play a role in every industry. I didn't understand how exactly it will be played out. But ChatGPT came and everybody's like, cool, this is fantastic. And now it's doing, we can do better drafting, legal documents and IP documents. We can do better drafting with it, and better searching, better marketing support. There are tools like First Ignite and TradeSpace and others. So there's definitely a productivity gain that we are seeing on the, when you're talking about AI, the other point that everyone talks about is the job loss or how the workforce is going to shift. I think most TTOs are very lean, so I don't necessarily see a immediate headcount change. But I definitely think there is room to evolve the job descriptions of a licensing manager and a portfolio manager or technology manager. Because you're gaining so much efficiency in one place, you don't need to be spending 40% of your time looking through legal documents. You could do that in 10% with your AI. I'm very sure that we are going to get into that worlds very soon, where you upload your document and on this platform knows your preferences of your institutions and gives you the red line, and you go through and review and approve it. We're not far from that.
Definitely
so
not.
Much time. You're going to be having. You can pay attention to more attention to the technologies that are less loved. We all have a portfolio where some are better than the others. Some get more attention than the others, and maybe do more active marketing and relationship management. I think our JD should evolve with AI as we use more and more AI. That's my current thinking on it. I don't know if it is any novel than most people's thinking, but that's my thoughts right now.
Now let's talk a little bit about where listeners can find royalty stacks. You mentioned Kickstarter campaign. Tell us a little bit about that. I'm sure some people are wondering, will it be on Amazon? What are your plans for the game?
Launching the game on Kickstarter because I don't know how many people want to buy it, and I don't want to spend $10,000 and make 100,000 copies and not sell any of them. So I'm doing through Kickstarter. So it'll go live on June 16th. and they can back my project up until July 17th, I believe. And if you back my project now, you will get the game in January of 2027. Whether or not it'll come on Amazon, I can't promise right now. I don't think there's, I haven't talked too much about it.
Well, that'll be for the future after you get done with Kickstarter. You can always pivot to Amazon and create your own store there, put it there.
Yeah, it would be very cool if I could do that. Yeah.
That would be really amazing. So, and Guru, one last question as the podcast comes to a close. If a tech transfer professional listening today brings royalty stacks home and plays it with their family, let's say over holidays or a long rainy weekend type of thing, what's the one thing you hope their non-tech transfer relatives or family members walk away understanding about what it is we actually do?
I guess the first and foremost thing I want them to is I want them to have had a good time playing the game. I think that's my first requirement, if you will. Beyond that, it'd be pretty cool if they walked away being more curious about patents and licenses and had a greater appreciation for just like what goes behind taking an idea and make it into a product in the market. I think we all take a lot of things for granted, and even myself included. Like, how did this little water bottle come to my desk right now? I don't think about it, but there's so much work behind it. There's so much risk in it. I hope people are more curious about it. I mean, my creative side always has been like, hey, the idea is the most important thing. But in reality, ideas are pretty cheap. It's like the execution is more difficult, and I hope they take that out from the game. Like, I hope they appreciate it more.
Well, Guru, congratulations on Royalty Stack. What a great idea, and wishing you much success with your Kickstarter campaign. And we'll have to have you back after some time to learn how your launch went and see if you've got any expansion packs available.
That would be great. Thank you so much, Leza.
Guru, this has been such a fun conversation. We've talked about your journey from a small town in India to a PhD in biomedical engineering to falling in love with tech commercialization at the University of Minnesota, and how all of that has accumulated in Royalty Stacks, a game that turns the everyday work of patents, licenses, and launch strategy into something that people can actually sit down and play. For our listeners who want to learn more about Royalty Stacks and how to back Guru's Kickstarter campaign or connect with Guru, we'll include links in the show notes, including his LinkedIn profile. Thanks for listening to Autumn on the Air. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks for listening to Autumn on the Air with Lisa Mueller. Get social with us and share your thoughts. You can tweet us at AUTM or visit us online at AUTM.net. We'll be back next week on the air. Be sure to join us.